assuming everyone can see the opening slide there. I see a thumbs up. Way to go. If you haven't heard of me, which apparently I've spoken at this particular venue a few times here. So what we have here, whoa, hello, I clicked the wrong thing there. Hold on a second. That's what happens when I get a little click happy. So here we go. If you've been to any of these sessions before that I've done, I'm Tom Duff. I'm a software engineer, administrator, developer, whatever. I work for Cambia Health Solutions, which is a West Coast-based health insurance firm. So I'm not selling you anything. I'm not a vendor. I'm not Microsoft, not an MVP. I'm just a person who somehow likes to get up and share these kind of tips. And with our tips that we have here, I don't expect that of the 20 tips that we're going to go over in the next 45 minutes, that you're going to look at all of them and go, oh, those were awesome. If you walk out of here with 3 to 5, then I've done my job. You found things that's like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that. This changes the way that I do my job. That's really what I'm looking for when we have a tip session like this. So again, I've tried to make a wide variety of tips in various areas. So, if one for, Excel doesn't happen to excite you, maybe the one that follows it in Teams does. So we'll just go from there and see how we go. I am going to do something that I really hadn't planned on. I'm going to put a bonus tip into the chat, and it's using Speaker Coach in Microsoft Teams. And the only reason I put this on here is because I have actually turned that on, because once you turn this on, all the meetings that you have turn on Speaker Coach, and it starts listening to you. It starts giving you real-time feedback. So if I start slowing down too much, it's going to go, hey, Tom, you might want to pick up the pace a little bit. Or if I'm just like blasting through it, it's like, you might want to tone it down a little bit. If I start doing a lot of ums and ands and stuff like that, it's going to let me know in real time. And then at the end, it's great because it gives me a synopsis of, here are the 7 or 8 different things that it looks at and says, hey, you were great on inclusivity. You were great on pacing. You repeat this particular word a little bit too often, and here's exactly where you did it in the meeting. So I would definitely encourage you to click on the link that I put in there. That's my 1 Minute Office Magic site that I run. It has all the tips that I put here, because when I create these tips internally, what I then do is I turn around, make sure there's no company information or anything in any of the screen images, but I also share them in the 1 Minute Office Magic site. So if you want to keep up with the ones that I'm doing, or you don't want to listen to me speak again, you want to skip me because you've already seen all the stuff, that's the site that you want to go take a look at. You'll also see my email, you put my Twitter address, LinkedIn. If you search Duffbird online, you will see me. I branded myself as that a long time ago. And so, yeah, if you find Duffbird, you'll find me. So let's go ahead and get started. Yeah, Speaker Tip just said to you, remember to ask questions after speaking for an extended period. Thank you, Speaker Coach. So the first one that I'm going to lead with is exporting Microsoft Teams wikis to OneNote. And the reason I bring this up is because this is now yet another migration effort that I have on my board, and that is to make sure that our internal people are getting their wikis out of the wiki application in Teams and into OneNote. Fortunately, Microsoft has made it very easy to make that change. So what happens now is when you go into Microsoft Teams and you click on a wiki tab that may happen to be there, you're going to get this message that says, wikis will go away starting in July. Actually, it now says September. This was an earlier screen print. And you can export your wiki to a new notes tab that it's going to create for you in this channel. And every channel can have a wiki. So if you have wikis in every one of your channels, you're going to get new sections in all of your you'll get new sections in your OneNote that's associated with that team. But they make it really easy. You just say get details, and then from there, comes up with a nice little panel, explains, hey, here's what's going to happen. All you really need to do is click export to notes. And depending on how big your wiki is, it's going to sit there and grind away. Mine's were very small because I've never been a fan of wikis. And when it gets done, it says, hey, great, click finish, and voila, you now have a notes tab at the very top of your screen. You now have in this particular case, it went ahead and did the general channel because that's where I had this particular wiki. And for each of the wiki pages that I have, it's going to create a page in that section in OneNote. And by and large, at least the kind of stuff I have done, which again was not highly complex, it migrated over really well. And again, to me, this is a lot easier to work with. If you've worked with OneNote, you know you can link from one page to another using a wiki style, nomenclature to get there. But this is something that if you don't do this by the end of the year, the wiki app in Teams is not going to be functional anymore, and your content will be gone. Can't get it back. Which if you delete a wiki in Teams right now, it's like, yeah, boom, it's gone. You're not getting that back either, which is one of the reasons why they want to get you off of wiki into something that's a little bit more managed. So I would recommend that once you do this to your particular wiki, that you remove the wiki tab from the tabs up at the top of your channel, because what you don't want to do is have people continue to put information into wiki, or at least attempt to put information into wiki. Make sure that they're going into notes. So there are some dates here. Again, July 2023 is when they said they weren't going to be able to create new wikis, but you can still access stuff. Mid 2023, this is where the September date, I believe, is now coming into play. You still can't create new wikis. The wikis tab isn't going to be supported, but if you have it on there, it's not going to basically lock you out and destroy your information. But at least as of right now, January 2024, wiki tabs are gone, the wiki app is gone, and your data is pretty much, well, actually it says users will still be able to download their wiki files from SharePoint. But again, I wouldn't place a lot of trust in that. I would attempt to get off your wiki as soon as possible and make sure that you're not going to get caught with your data not being found or not being accessible, things like that. So that's the first tip. That's more of a, hey, changes are coming up, and if you don't do this, you're going to find yourself in a situation that you're not going to want to be in. So any questions on that before I move on? Because my speaker coach said I really should do that. Not hearing anything, we'll continue. Managing your calendar with the hybrid work hours and location feature. This is something that's relatively new that allows you to not only put your work hours into your calendar, so you can say, hey, I work from 6 to 3, which I do, but it can also allow you to say, oh, and on Monday, I'm going to be in the office, and on Tuesday, I'm going to be working remote. So I'm going to show you how this is done, because as of right now, I don't think they've done it for the client yet, but this is on the web, Outlook version on the web here. Go up to the icon in order to be able to get to settings. And if you go down to calendar and work hours and location, you'll see this nice layout. So it's basically Monday through Friday, because these are the days I mark that I work. Here are my hours. Just so you know, I don't work 6 to 3 Minneapolis time. I work basically West Coast time. So I'll work 6 to 3 there, which is basically 8 to 5 Minneapolis time. Having said that, I still get up at 4 in the morning our time to go exercise, but that's a whole different story. But here you can sit there and pick your dates and times. They can be different for every day, which is great. You hadn't been able to do that before. And then you can go ahead and pick, am I remote? Am I in the office? So this is really nice for somebody if they're trying to determine, hey, are you going to be in the office on Monday or are you going to be in the office on Friday? Is that one of your regular days? I believe it also goes in and says, if I'm trying to schedule an in-person meeting and I've invited you, it's going to take the office versus remote into effect or into account. So that's something that is really useful to go ahead and have this information here. The other thing that I really like for flexibility is if you click the plus, it's actually going to, oops, I thought it was going to give me that there. Up there's the example, I'm sorry. If you click the plus next to one of your time frames, if my mic is acting up, let me know if it's cutting out. I can probably close off a couple more things on my side if there's a problem there.
Seems fine.
Okay, sounds good, thanks. If you click a plus there, what it will actually do is it will break that day into 2 or more different time slots. So this is perfect if you're saying, hey, I'm going to be in the office from 8 to noon, but on Tuesday, I'm then going to be working the last half of my day, 1 to 5, remote. So again, this gives people who are working with you and the fact that you're working in a hybrid environment a really great way to tell whether or not they can expect you or not expect you at a particular location. And just to make it a little bit more clear when you're looking at your calendar, they do have little location icons at the top of each day for your calendar. In my case, I'm always at home because I work, quote unquote, in Portland, but I actually live here in Plymouth. And then on days where I'm split, you'll see a split icon in there too. So that works really nice. I love that. For the hybrid calendar, do you know are there any plans for this to be available on the desktop app? Jennifer, no, I don't know that. I don't have any insight as to whether or not they'll get there. I would assume eventually, especially the fact that they're doing some new stuff with Outlook. There's a new Outlook coming up for Windows and things like that. You may see that particular feature carry over. If any of the Microsoft people that we have on this call have any insight, feel free to chime in there. But as of right now, I don't think with the current version of Outlook, yeah, the new version of Outlook, it will come to. Thanks, Matt. I was thinking it would probably get there because that seems like it's going to be a really cool thing. So modern comments in Microsoft Whiteboard. In our company, we had Mural, and of course, everybody loves Mural. And we were trying to get people to use Whiteboard, and there wasn't a great one-for-one correspondence. But Microsoft is making a lot of changes in Whiteboard that is getting things to feature parity with Whiteboard type applications that are standalone. And one of them is the availability of commenting. So if you're in a whiteboard and you've got your little icon bar here over on the left-hand side, there's a little bubble. And that bubble, when you click on new comment, will basically launch what looks a lot like the modern comments that you would see in Word or Excel or any of the other things that you can see in Microsoft 365. So it basically opens up a comment window. Here's the person who did it, and enables you to put your information in there. When you click the send icon, then what ends up happening is it actually gives you the chance for a reply, and the person can go in, give a reply. You've got the indentation, so you know that there's a discussion going back and forth there. And that is now going to be part of your whiteboard that you have out there. If you want to get rid of a comment because it's either not applicable or it's been taken care of, you can always hover over and get delete comment from the ellipsis. And if you want to go ahead and still get rid of the bubble, you really don't want the big thing sitting there. If you just click on the little chat icon that they have there, or the little comment icon that they have, that will actually collapse it down. And it collapses it down in a way that you can then move it around the screen, push it off to the side. You don't have to have it front and center. You can make sure that it doesn't play havoc with what you're trying to present. So keep that in mind. If you like your whiteboard, you want to put comments in there, but you don't want to do it with a sticky note, you now have the ability to do commenting in Microsoft Whiteboard. I'm going to come back up here and look at the chat because I know that there was a lot of talk on the calendar. which products would hours, locations be visible if not able to set? Teams current version of Outlook. I think it was supposed to make it to Teams eventually, but I don't believe it was there yet. So
I think you're correct, Tom.
Yeah,
I haven't seen it yet, and I think it's going to be, if you're in web, you're going to see it in web. Once it comes to desktop, then it's going to be desktop. Eventually,
right.
we'll get to Teams.
Yeah, because I know they were looking at the fact that you were going to be able to set that information either in Outlook or in Teams, and
Correct.
I just don't think they've gotten to that point yet. So Cool. Thanks. Okay, automatic lowering of hands. Yay, I love this one because usually when Sandra Pfeiffer and I are presenting internally, one of us has to manage while the other person is presenting, and you've got all the hands come up and somebody would say, hey, I've got a question, and their hand goes up, and immediately I go over there and lower their hand, lower their hand, lower their hand. Now Teams does that for you automatically. It's really awesome. So here's an example in my screen where I went ahead and did raise the hand, which was perfect. And then after I did my question, it basically sensed the fact that I was done talking, waited 2 or 3 seconds, and then it said, hey, we're going to lower your hand in a couple seconds because we've noticed that you've spoken and you're not speaking it anymore. Now, if I want to keep my hand up because no, I still have a pending question that you haven't answered, I can click to keep it raised. But if I don't do anything, that hand's going to go down about 3 or 4 seconds after you stop talking, which is great for keeping the chat window clear or the people list clear of people who have hands up and you're like, oh, have I answered your question? Oh, do I need to come back? Oh, did you lower your hand? Did you raise it again? This is a really cool feature that I like a lot. It's making moderation of chats a lot easier. How to remove someone from appearing in your junk email folder. This was something that was interesting because my immediate boss asked me, I need you to do an article on junk mail. I'm like, I don't want to do an article on junk mail, but yeah, I'll go ahead and do it. This one was really popular within our internal area because I think a lot of people didn't understand how to manage junk email from Outlook. So in this particular case, I'm doing this initially from the Outlook client. So that's why you're seeing this particular layout. And you just go up to the home and click junk. And when you click junk, what you would normally see, and usually you do that when you are, when you have a piece of junk mail out there. Unfortunately, when I was doing the screen prints here, I didn't have a piece of junk mail that I could get and I didn't want to wait for it. You would say, okay, I've got this email selected, and in junk, I can sit there and say, I can either block the sender completely, I can pick never block the sender at all, so that's specific, this person at whatever the domain is, never block the sender's domain, so anything from domainx.com is going to come through, or never block this group or mailing list if you have some sort of a mailing list coming in that keeps getting dumped out to that. And when you actually select one of those, you'll get the pop-up that says this has been added to your safe senders list. So from this perspective, it was, I had something that was appearing in junk and I wanted to get rid of it. I wanted to somehow get it into a state where it wouldn't be always popping out to junk. Now, what I can do is after I've gone ahead and done that for a particular email, I can go out and review my junk email settings. Once again, home, junk, and then you can do add, edit, or remove email addresses or domains from the safe sender list. This was really kind of eye-opening when I went out there and looked at it because I've been accumulating this stuff for, many, many years. I'm like, oh, I don't want to see stuff from them anymore. Oh gosh, I haven't remembered that company in forever. So this was a great way to go through and either add a new domain out there if you want to, remove domains where it's like, I don't want to get this. You're fine, go back to junk. And you've got all these different options. You can see your block senders. If you want to say, oh, these are the people I have blocked, I really do want to get those. So you could go in and start removing some of those too. And if you're using the Outlook web-based version, which I do, that actually allows you to go into the Outlook settings, mail, junk email, and it's got much the same type of setup here, where you can go through and look for safe senders, block senders, add, remove, delete, fold, spindle, mutilate. Really a good way to every once in a while go through and start looking at what you have out there and make sure that you're not missing stuff that you really should be looking at. Looking at the chat, you can see the user's location in Teams by hovering on their profile card. Great. Web or based, desktop, or in the new one of Outlook. Anyone in GCC able to see that location? I missed the steps where to select location in Outlook. That was in, let me see if I can find the screen that I was at here for that. Oh, y'all kept talking about this one for a long time. That was here for settings, the settings icon, and then view all Outlook settings. And then at that point, if you went into calendar and work hours and location, that was where that came in at. Jason, I think there is also a limit to the number of emails you can block. So in some cases, blocking the entire domain can help with that. That's true. Sometimes if you're getting, stuff that you're just like, I really don't want to see these things anymore, that's a good way to make sure that they're not there. So let me get back to where I want compact chat. Okay. So that's what I was going to say, the one that I had, I was showing Outlook Web, not the new Outlook. So Microsoft Teams, they came out with this some time ago. It's the compact chat setting. And when I first looked at it, I was like, hey, this is great. Though I must admit, I do like the comfy name just because I think it's great. But I've always looked at comfy as having a whole lot of wasted space in the chat. I always thought, boy, it'd be nice if you could condense those up. But the thing that I didn't like about the compact chat is that they dropped the timestamp on it. And the only way you get the timestamp is to hover over the item, which I don't want to do. I just want to be able to look at the screen and see when the timestamps of when these items came in. So I was not a big fan of the compact chat setting, but then they made some more changes and now I really like it. So if you're in Teams and you go under General, click the compact under chat density. And what you end up getting in that case is, and this is the comfy setting. You'll see there's a lot of white space, or in this case, black, because I use dark mode. And the other thing that I really didn't think about at the time, but it's definitely something that is important, and that is on the chat bar down the left-hand side here, it gives you like a little bit of a snippet of the last message you have out there, which can be kind of bad if you said something not nice to the person who is looking at your screen. So if you go to compact chat setting, what's nice is it now pushes everything over to the left and left aligns it, which is great. It now has the timestamp, which was the big thing that kept me from doing that. And it also eliminates that line of here's what's in the most recent chat. Here's like the first, 50 characters or whatever. I love the fact that I can now share my chat screen and not have people looking at, oh, what was the last thing you said to that person? It's not there anymore. So I really like this one now. And yes, Don, thank you for basically saying that sync button. That should get you back up to the same place that I am right now. So. Okay, adding pronouns to your Microsoft 365 profile. This one's been out for a little while, but this is really good if you either want to have people know what your pronouns are, or if you're in an environment where there are people who are very active in sharing their profile or sharing their pronouns. And this gets everybody kind of on the same page in terms of, hey, here's my pronouns that I prefer. Everybody is now looking at that going, oh, this is an acceptable thing. And so some people going, well, I don't care about pronouns. You really should. So in this particular case, if you go up to in chat and you just hover over your particular picture, you're going to see it pop up. And if you haven't set your pronouns, you're going to see this little plus icon with the word pronouns next to it. And if you click that, what it then does is it gives you the option to go in and say, what pronouns do you want to assign to yourself? They give you a few hints for they, them, he, she, her, and he, him, but there are other pronouns too, and you get to make those choices as to what you want it to be. When you click save, then anytime you hover over a person's picture, you're now going to see what are the pronouns that that person prefers. Another thing that I thought was really cool about this, and I didn't think about it at the time, but it was actually a really nice, was a nice feature. If you are working in an environment where there are a lot of offshore or non-American people, a lot of times you'll see a name that you're like, I'm not sure if Srini is a man's name, a woman's name, you know, who is Srini? If Srini's not sharing their picture, then you're really hard pressed to try to figure out, you know, what gender is Srini or what gender does Srini identify by? If you're having those pronouns out there, it can help a lot if you're dealing with an offshore environment where you see a name and you can think, oh, this is he or this is she. Outside of the fact of sharing, you know, how do they identify? It just gives you a little bit more idea of, am I talking to or am I expecting a woman on the call or am I expecting a man on the call in terms of trying to make that initial connection with the person. So this one is really nice and we are using it now. We had a little bit of flare up at work when we put this out because the article that was put out for it was a little, hey, you need to do this. And some people took exception to the fact because we've got locations in certain states where, yeah, that wasn't an accepted thing. And they thought, well, yeah, I don't want to do this. And they're like, yeah, come on, please just do it. So I think that one covers that one. Oh, and then here's what it looks like on Outlook in the web. You'll see the profile information out there. So filtering calendar entries on Outlook for the web. This is really good if you're doing demos and you want to demo your calendar, but you've got private things on your calendar, not necessarily private, I don't want anybody to see them, but private things that are not necessarily work related. And if you're sharing your calendar, you don't want people to actually know, or you don't think it's any of their business that, you know, you're doing these particular things or going to this particular place. Well, now what you can do, I don't want to show anything that's private when I'm doing a demo here. So what I can do, and again, this is in Outlook for the web, so this is my calendar web version. I can go up to Home and I'll see a filter tab up here. And when I click on filter, it gives me the option, filter appointments, meetings, categories, show as, privacy. In this case, when I hovered over privacy, I wanted to filter and only show things that are not private. And when I did that, you noticed I had all those yellow things, which were my private entries below. All of those no longer show up on my calendar. Now, it didn't delete them from the calendar, but it does hide them. And for the purposes of demoing something or taking a screen print, this is really great. The Outlook client does not have a calendar filter on it. So again, this is something that you're going to want to be using Outlook for the web for. And I'll just make a quick side note here. I know that I've had people talk about, well, Yeah, but I don't want to use the web version of it all the time. I'm not ready to switch to the web. Fine, use both. I have both the web-based version of Outlook running and I have the Outlook client running. Now, the Outlook client is off to the side, hardly ever open it up, but there are still a few features that I like in the Outlook client, and I'll use the Outlook client for those. But primarily, I'm using the web base. So when I have people at work going, yeah, I really should switch over, just run them both, use them both, and start to figure out which one works best for you. It's not an either or, it can be an and. So keep that in mind if you're trying to figure out, is it time for me to move to Outlook for the web? Go ahead and just open it up, start using it, see if it works for you. Creating private draft pages in SharePoint Online sites. This is really great if you're working on a page for that super secret project that nobody wants to mention or that nobody can know about until it's actually published. So in this particular case, I'm in a SharePoint site. I'm going to go to New and Page. And when the whole page thing comes up to create the page, there's now this option that says Create Page as a Private Draft. And the nice thing about this is when you create this as a private draft, you are the only person who's going to see this. Unless you're a SharePoint admin, you have access to everything. But when you look at it, you'll see private draft up here, which means that I created this. I'm the only person who's going to see this, which means I'm not going to have people with a higher level of access coming in and seeing this, or people with incorrect levels of access coming in and seeing this. I can then share the draft by clicking on Share Draft. And then what that does is it brings me up a share panel to say, hey, I want to manage access to this particular page, and here are the people that I want to share it with. And so these people are now going to be able to see that page. They're going to be able to actually work on that page with you. And you're pretty well guaranteed that you're not going to be revealing information on that page that is not ready for dissemination within the company yet. So that's a really good thing to do. And then when you're ready to go, you just publish the page like normal, and everybody's going to be able to use the page. So keep that in mind. That is a really great feature. Again, if you're doing a page of information that is not ready for dissemination yet to everybody, go ahead and do a private draft, and that way you can work on it with a small team and then release it when you're ready for it. Ending a meeting in Microsoft Teams. This is really great when you've all had this problem where somebody doesn't happen to get off the call. And so when you go back in, the call was recorded and you wonder how come it was a 3-hour call. Well, it was a 3-hour call because after the 55-minute mark, when everybody was supposed to leave, there was that one person that stayed on the call and it just kept recording. Well, now what I do in order to prevent that, when I get ready, and these are meetings that I'm running, when I get ready to leave the meeting, instead of just clicking leave and hoping that everybody gets off, or clicking leave and then going out and forcing people off, I just click on end meeting. And that actually shuts down the meeting. Gives me the option to know that it's going to be ending. I click end. And at that point, the meeting shut down, everybody's kicked off, and the recording processing immediately starts taking place. So usually within like a minute of that meeting ending, I can go out and see what the attendance is and things like that. So if you're using the leave button to close down your meetings, you may just want to hover it over and go down and use the end meeting instead, because it's going to make for much shorter recordings. Duplicate, cool, wasn't there audio? Yes, there was supposed to be. I don't know if that actually made it, because yeah, you're right. There was like, okay, if everything shuts down and nobody's doing anything, it would like after 5 minutes or something come out and say, hey, doesn't look like there's any activity here. Click here to keep it running, or we're going to go ahead and close the meeting down in a couple more minutes. Theoretically, that keeps you from getting the long time at the end. But yeah, I looked for it. I didn't see it, but I don't know if it just snuck in, and I've never been in that situation to see if it actually kicks in. But using the end meeting definitely gets you out of that. So yeah, Don, there's some things like I'm like, oh yeah, I really want to see that. And I keep checking back and it's like, okay, it was in April, it's now in September, and poof, it disappeared somewhere and I don't know where it went. That was kind of
Sometimes
one
it
of
does
them.
happen. It
Yeah.
totally does happen, Tom.
Yeah, the one that really gets me is like, oh, rich text allowed in planner task. Like, awesome, love this. I'm sure that's been 2 years now, and they're still talking about it. Yeah,
Agreed.
like, really? But
Agreed.
I did see that they, on that one, it was like, yeah, we kind of have to set up the internal field for rich text differently. So there's actually going to be kind of 2 rich text fields or 2 fields out there for planner task information. Like, okay, I can see where that got a little complicated, but I'm still waiting for the first time I can put bold information in the task fields. So cool stuff. So duplicating a meeting with Outlook on the web. Again, this is something that is Outlook on the web related, because that's usually where Microsoft targets things. So it was great. But this is nice in the fact that if you have to recreate new meetings, and it's got, you know, the meeting that you're looking at, it's got a nice agenda, it's got some attachments on it. It's like, gosh, I really just want to grab this meeting, change the dates, and get a new meeting entry out there, keeping everything the same. I don't want to have to rebuild the whole thing from scratch. Well, you don't have to anymore. So if you are in the Outlook calendar on the web, you can right-click on an existing meeting, and it's going to go to duplicate event, which is an awesome feature. Because what it does is it comes up and basically gives you the chance to set a whole new date, and it keeps all the sample agendas, it keeps the attachments, it keeps everything. So boom. Arthur Henry, meeting duplications in Outlook desktop, you can control via it. Awesome. That's cool. I haven't changed it. I had not even seen this one out there. I had somebody go, oh yeah, I just use duplicate event. I'm like, huh? So this is really a great way to only have or be able to not have to rebuild all these things from scratch. So keep an eye open for that. If you're in the Outlook client, then you can control V and control C, or control C and control V it, and you can get it from there. So good. Jason, planner needs some help. It still kills me that a task owner doesn't get notifications. Yeah, the notifications process is something that they really could do differently, and yeah, improvements would be greatly appreciated there. Maybe one of these days. 12, timer feature in Outlook Whiteboard. This is another thing that was keeping people internally at our company from switching from Mural to Whiteboard, and that was they like to say, okay, y'all have 5 minutes to do such and such, and I'll start the timer. Mural had one of those built in. Whiteboard didn't. Well, now, if you're in Whiteboard, you'll see a stopwatch icon up in the upper right corner. And when you click on that, it'll come up with a little box, gives you a 5, by default it's 5 minutes, but you can set it to whatever you need to be. And then once you click the send icon or the start icon, it goes ahead and starts the countdown. And it just goes ahead and counts the number of, minutes still remaining. And when it gets down to closer to the expiration date, it does change colors to get your information out there. So it'll switch from like the regular black into red, saying, hey, you're almost there. And then once it hits 0, it goes ahead and resets back to the 5-minute thing. So this is really great if you're doing things within a whiteboard. You want to have an exercise that lasts 5 minutes, or you want to give everybody a 10-minute break, start a timer. That way people can walk off, come back. Oh, I've still got a couple more minutes. This was a feature that we really liked having. So this one is really cool. You can now start a Microsoft Teams chat with a distribution list. So instead of having to figure out, oh, here were the 10 different people I needed to invite to this chat, which unfortunately, if you've got 10 people in a chat, that might be a little much anyway. However, do you want to have to put all 10 of those people in, remembering what the names are? Well, if you have a distribution list, now you can just invite the distribution list to the chat. So in this particular example, we've got a distribution list out there called IT SharePoint something or other that's been blurred out. And I just started typing in IT share, and it went out and found that one, which meant that I could just click and select that one. What it then did is it went ahead and just filled in the names of the people who, oops, didn't mean to go there. Let's go back one. It goes in and fills in the names of the people who are in that distribution list. I didn't have to remember who they are. I didn't have to put them in manually. They just hit automatically. So that one I really like. We disabled that within the message policy. Some of our distributions lists are really large. Yeah, there's plenty of distribution lists that I could have chosen. It's like, oh, yeah, a group chat with 500 people is okay, right? No, it's really not. So yeah, you may have to do some disabling to say, yeah, we don't want people trying to create 500 people chats here using distribution lists when it's really not appropriate. So yes, some things are good and then some things are not good in excess, and that's one that's not good in excess, unfortunately. Going back to whiteboard here, sticky notes. One of the things that we didn't like about whiteboard in Microsoft was somebody would put a sticky note out there, but there was really no way to tell who the sticky note was part of. Sometimes you may want anonymity there, but other times you may want to see, hey, Sandra put something out there and see what the name is. Well, now that is actually supported. So if you haven't been out to whiteboard for a while, you may see the little pop-up that says, hey, you can now see names on sticky notes. So just keep that in mind. It's just letting you know what's out there. And so in this case, in this example, Sandra had created this pink sticky note, and it doesn't have her name on it yet because she hasn't put any content. But as soon as she does that, it then puts her name out there. So now I know that anything that's in this one is Sandra's, unless I go in and put something in there too, in which case it also puts my name in there. So again, this is nice because you can't have people going in and going, hey, I'm just going to put a snide comment on this little sticky note here. It's like, yeah, and you're going to have to own it because your name is now on it too. So this is really good if you're trying to say, hey, that's an interesting concept. Can you talk a little bit more about it? And you can actually ask back at slide 7. Sorry about that. I didn't think we moved anywhere on the slides. This is why sometimes I just like to go with PowerPoint regular and not do PowerPoint live. Seems like I have a little bit more control and it behaves a little better. But the thing is, if you're going, well, what if I don't want names? Well, if you actually go up to the settings for your whiteboard and go under authors, you do have the ability to turn off the slides or turn off the names on slides. So go ahead and keep that in mind. If you want to have some level of anonymity, you can actually turn off those names. So for those of you who aren't caught up with me or you don't have the ability to catch up with me, I'm now about to hit slide number 56. Which is tip 15, adding people to Microsoft Teams chat by just mentioning them. This is another thing I like. If I'm in a chat with 2 different people, and it's like, hey, I want to add a third person into this. Well, I could go up to the upper right corner and click on the plus and add the person there, and that's all well and good. Or what I can do is I can just mention them in the chat window here. And what it will do is it basically gives you the option of once you put the @ symbol in there, it says, hey, add someone to the chat. I go ahead and select that. And when I select that, I can put the person's name. And what's nice is it gives the ability for me to either don't include any chat history, so they'll join the chat, but they don't see everything that's just happened before. I can say only show history back for a certain number of days, or I can say, hey, they're part of the chat, they can see everything now. So you have that option. You can be a little selective in what that new person is going to be able to see in this chat that has been ongoing. And in this case, Sandra's been added. It tells everybody in the chat that Sandra's been added and that all the chat history has been shared with her. So that way nobody's going to have a surprise. It's like, hey, when Sandra get part of that? That's a nice way to let people know what's going on there. Arthur, I see you can add team membership using DLs. I'm guessing the static, but know for certain if this can be dynamic. AT user added to a DL auto adds himself to a team channel. I don't know about that one. I don't think I've tried that one. It wouldn't add them necessarily to a team's channel, because basically anybody in the team is going to have access to that channel unless it's private. It would be more in the chat. I don't know that it would differentiate for you to get into the chat there. So interesting. Yeah, I don't use this a lot because the people I chat with, I usually have just one or two at a time. So calendar pop-out screens. This is something that Microsoft's been doing a really good job of, because it used to be that Microsoft was basically a single window, single pane of glass type thing, which was fine unless you said, oh, I want to go create a calendar entry, and it would pop up a new calendar page and you go, oh, I need to go get information back on a different calendar entry. So when you go back to calendar, well, now you've lost your focus on the calendar entry you were in. Now you have to go back to find it again. And it was really kind of a pain to do that. Well, now what happens if you are creating a new calendar entry, you have the click the new meeting button. When you click new meeting button, it actually pops it out into a new window, which means you can drag it around. You can then line it up next to something else that you're looking at in Teams. And so you no longer have to be doing a lot of back and forth to get things from one screen copied over into here. You can actually have them side by side, which makes it really easy then to be able to do multiple things at once. And a lot of times, even like chats and stuff like that, you'll see this little icon that has an arrow next to it. And that arrow basically will pop that screen into a separate window. So if you're working with Teams, you could have like 8 or 10 different Teams windows open in terms of chats that you want to have standalone, calendar entries that you're looking at, things like that. So take advantage of that when you can, because it makes it a lot easier instead of having to go backwards and forward like a browser to find what you were looking at before and then get back to where you were at. Let's see what we have here. Diagrams helpful, didn't realize PSG, not sure that's good or bad. Com add-in, table missed the gap between web add-ins. This was for something that Michelle had looked at earlier, which I missed. If you want to see that, you can scroll back up and take a look at it from there. I will keep going because I'm now into Max's time. And here's the calendar pop-out screens as we just talked about. So sending video snippets with team video clips. This was something that it's kind of cool, but I'm also not a real big fan of it, just because I would prefer read my stuff instead of watching somebody. So what you can do is you have the ability now to send short little video clips to a particular chat that you have going on. So in this particular case, here we've got a chat that I have with Sandra, and in the lower right corner, there's an icon that it's only available in Teams chats, and it's a camera icon. And when you click on it, it pops up this screen that lets you record this video clip. Make sure that you can select the camera you want, the microphone you want. Once you're ready to start, you go ahead and click the record button, and you do your clip as much as you want to. You're basically, I think, restricted to 1 minute on these. So it's not something that you're going to have this 30-minute presentation that you're doing. And when you're done, you can click stop, and then you can review what you just had. So kind of shows you a nice little review screen here. You can play it again. If you like, that wasn't my best effort, you can go ahead and record it again, and you can just sit there and go back and forth as much as you need to until you get what you want, and then you go ahead and click send. And then that video, the short video, shows up in line in the chat, and you can go ahead and click play and get the information. Now, as I mentioned, I'm not a huge fan of that because you can, is it a 15-minute? Okay, it's been a while since I've looked at this one. I know it was really short when it began, I think. I would prefer see a short synopsis via text that I can read because I'm a fast reader, and I can see it move on. Or if I'm sitting there listening to somebody, especially if it's 15 minutes, I'm going, come on, move on, get to your point, you know. And a lot of people are really conscientious if they're in the camera and they're like, blah, 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 and they're not saying anything. They're just babbling on. So this is not bad. However, use it sparingly and know your audience if you can. You know, don't be sending them video clips instead of like, you know, hey, want to go out for lunch today? Don't send them a video clip that says, hey, how you doing? Hope you're having a great day. I was kind of thinking, you're a little hungry? Want to go out for lunch? No, do not do that. Send them a text message that says, do you want to go out for lunch? So that's the reason why I think it's not bad, but just be really careful how you use it. And I see there's a lot of discussion going on here about this allow you to do a screen. No, it's not a screen share demo. It doesn't allow you to share your screen. It's basically just you and the camera. So if you're going to be sharing your screen in something like that, you're probably going to want to use Stream to do that, or the new feature that's coming out, which is Clipchamp. And Clipchamp is going to give you the ability to do those kind of screen shares and recordings. So those are your two options, but this is simply just you and the camera talking, and that's it. So, oh, and here's the caveats here. Maximum 1 minute. So, okay, apparently it has been improved since the time that I did this particular tip. So you can't download the clip, you can't forward it. It's strictly just for a video clip in a chat channel. So keep that open. Again, not a big fan, but that's me. 18, deleting your chats from Microsoft Teams. You may have a ton of chats that have accumulated over time, over and over and over again. Or you're part of a chat and you just don't want to be part of that chat anymore and you just want to get it off your list, but you don't want to have everybody delete the chat. What you can do if you're in the chat, you can go to delete chat now. And when you do the delete, this is going to permanently delete the chat for you, but not the other people in the chat, and it removes you from the chat. So this is really great if you just want to clean things up, or if you were part of a chat that you keep getting pinged because there's new messages coming out, I don't want anything to do with this anymore. Go ahead and delete the chat. It takes you out, it gets it off your screen, and you don't have to do anything. And you're not going to lose anything that was in the chat at any point in time. So if you want to go and clean things up, like I don't want that file out there anymore, you have to do that manually. This simply takes you out of the chat. Coming to the home stretch here, editing your last Microsoft Teams messages with the up arrow. This is kind of a cool little tip. So if you're typing away in a chat and you happen to put a chat out there called "this is a test message," but I misspelled it and said "this is a test massage," which is a whole different kind of message. What you can do is just hit the up arrow key on your keyboard. And when you do that, it brings that last message back into the chat panel. You can make your corrections, and then you can click the check box or the check icon, which then actually saves it. And you now have a test message instead of a test massage. This only goes back one level. This doesn't say, oh, I want to keep going back up for the last 5 chats and get it up to that one. No, at that one, you're going to have to like go in and edit it or pull in the new content or do whatever. This is just for the last message that you typed. But again, if that's what you're trying to edit, you just want to make a quick change, you don't want to have to find edit, make your change, resave, this is a really quick way to get there. And finally, seeing unread only on your Teams activity feed. So a lot of people tend to work off their feed and they are looking for items that are unread. Well, you may see that there's a number up there and there's bolded stuff, but you may have this huge list and you can't find where all the boldings are and stuff like that. Well, now there's this unread only toggle up at the top, which is really great. In this example I have here, you're seeing 5 entries that I have in my feed, only 2 of which are bolded. Those are the ones that I haven't seen. So if I go ahead and turn on the unread only, then I have basically narrowed everything down to the stuff that I haven't seen, and now I can focus my attention on just those items. And then once I'm done with everything, then I know we're fine. I don't have anything bolded anymore. I can turn back on the regular setting and I will see everything again. So if you like to work from your feed and make sure there's things that are not going, getting past your attention or stuff, that's the best way to go through it. And so I'm sorry for all the people who things got stuck at a certain level. I'm not sure why, but we're at 75 now. We're done. I've done the 20 tips. So hopefully you found 2 or 3 items in there that were useful for you that you can then take with you and hopefully make your life a little better. So with that, I will hand it back over to Michelle. Michelle, I need to go ahead and run off to something different. Do you mind if I just put a PDF of this presentation into the chat? Because somebody's asking if I'm going to do that. Okay, I'll go ahead and do that, and then I'll drop off after I get that. Thanks, everyone. I really appreciate your time, and enjoy the rest of the session here.
Awesome. Thank you, as always, Tom.